he, him from Missouri, who says there might be a better way to respond to the look at the trees argument and the problem of evil. T, how are you?
I'm doing well. Before we get started on that, can I just make a quick response to the last call?
Yeah, make it really, really quick though, because he's not here to defend himself.
Yeah, I don't want to do that. I just want to give him something to think about maybe before he calls into the next show. I don't really see a difference between extreme skepticism and cynicism. And I don't see how he doesn't end up at solipsism if he just presupposes solipsism instead of an afterlife. That's like, how do we know NDEs aren't just the brain coming out of the jar and getting plunged back in? But anyway, I don't want to drag it into a discussion.
Okay, so what you wanted to talk about, looking at the trees, look at the trees argument and the problem of evil. So take us through it.
Yeah. So usually the typical atheist response to this is, the problem of evil. And I feel like when that response is given, it does a couple things. One, it validates like any presumptions that theists might have about atheists being, negative, mean-spirited type people. And also it puts them on their back of their heels in the conversation, where kind of cuts off the conversation, and then they start going into, the fall of man type arguments. I feel I have a way to more meet them where they're at. I'm like 40 years old, a little over 40. So when I was a kid, there was a magician named David Copperfield, and I watched David Copperfield make the Statue of Liberty disappear. And my brother was right next to me when I watched it, and I was amazed. And he looks at me and he's like, they just use mirrors, right? And just like completely reduced it. And I feel like atheists and theists do the same thing. Like when atheists look at the world, we still see magic in it. It's just we don't see like the rabbit magically appear out of the hat. We recognize that it took years of sleight of hand and all these like perfections of techniques to develop this thing. And if you really think about it, like that's more amazing than someone just being able to like poop something out of existence, like, and have no explanation for it. I feel like, to kind of answer back with a more of that approach would kind of meet them where they're at and continue the conversation and maybe give them an alternative way to look at it.
Yeah, I kind of agree with you. I mean, the look at the trees argument itself is pretty much just presupposing something, and I'm all for trying to meet people where they're at. I think that the only difficulty where anything could arise here is that generally you get, in my experience, you get two kinds of people who are using the look at the trees argument. The first kind is kind of people who've grown up in kind of insular communities, who've not had that exposure before to kind of these arguments. They've heard maybe the preacher, or they've done a little bit of internet research, and they've heard this argument and thought, that's really, really good, I'll use that on an atheist. And when they come to an atheist and start talking to them, they don't realize how poor that argument actually is. And I think absolutely in those circumstances, trying to meet them where they're at and investigate it together is a really, really, really good methodology. The difficulty, I think, with the kind of thing you're proposing is that a lot of these people who are using this argument aren't that kind of person. And a lot of them are, practiced apologists who know it's a bad argument and try and attempt to use it anyway, and try and use sleight of hand, if you like, themselves to kind of dismiss any atheist response. And I think that's probably why you get these hard pushbacks from atheists against those arguments with those people, because you're kind of, when someone's trying to, and evidently in some cases, use that sleight of hand with you and try and they're just presupposing something, and then they're trying to they're trying to just simply win the argument and get a gotcha in there. Sometimes it's not only advisable but also necessary to push back hard against them. So I think, as in any of these conversations that we have, I think it's important to take the particular circumstances into account and the particular person that you're talking to, and take it on its own merits, rather than just come up with a one-size-fits-all response.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Real quick, do you know how? Oh, go ahead.
Oh no, you go ahead, and then I'll chime in afterwards.
Oh, I was just going to tell you guys. Do you know how he did make the Statue of Liberty disappear?
No,
I'm not familiar with it. No.
I don't want to spoil alert on a 40-year-old magic trick here, but
I'm sure you'll be fine.
Yeah, I think you're okay.
He had these two towers, and he pulls up a curtain in front of the towers, and then goes to the back of the crowd and gets down by the speaker, and he uses him going back to the speaker and the volume of the music to hide the vibration of the stage moving, so that one of the towers blocked the Statue of Liberty. So, and that just kind of goes to show that when you think something like NDE is the obvious explanation is an afterlife, maybe the obvious explanation isn't so obvious, It's like,
yeah, but I did want to kind of go along with what Richard was saying, that it really does depend on who you're talking to. And I know before I really got into doing like these call-in shows, or really started having conversations with people, I had thoughts of like, well, maybe I can do this in a kinder way than these other people, and maybe I can just help people understand, and that's a great goal, and I want for everybody to be able to have those kind conversations where they can just try to understand each other's perspectives and work to learn about truth together. I think that's an ideal situation, and for some people it's great. For some people it works very well. After doing this show and other shows, I've noticed not everybody likes to go with you there. Like Richard was saying, there are some people who just want to win, or they just want to smuggle in some very problematic ideas, and there is a time and a place to be aggressive. And I think that that's something that we can't get too burdened by. Am I coming off as too aggressive? Am I offending these people? Am I making them upset? Like, yeah, I want to be conscious of other people's emotions, but I will absolutely not be a kind interlocutor when talking with someone who's trying to justify eradication of trans people because of the Bible. Like there's certain arguments that will get brought in that should not be taken with a kind conversation. And I'm not going to say that everybody that believes that necessarily needs to be yelled at. There are some people that just don't understand and haven't been exposed to cultures outside of their own. And so, yeah, I think it's context dependent who you need to use what arguments with. But there are definitely some people who should be argued with more harshly than others. So.
Oh yeah, for sure. I'm a squatter punk from LA originally, and now the reason I call in under one letter is I'm a trans parent or a parent of a trans kid in Missouri. Mm-hmm. So I know all about when you need to get a little loud and push back harder. So.
But yeah, thank you for telling us about your perspective and your argument. I'm sure that'll help a lot of people who want to have some gentle conversations with friends and family and things.
Absolutely. And as I say, I think we should always, or I at least always, try and begin every conversation with each new interlocutor as something that is friendly and something that we're working together on, and we're trying to discover kind of the best method of going down these routes together. I think that's always the best way to start. And, absolutely. And with Ben, sometimes that's just not the case. And you have to kind of put your foot down and get a little bit stronger, heavier handed, shall we say, with them. But yeah, I think that's a really good call. You did want to touch on another point. Do you want to quickly touch on that before we let you go, T, about the problem of evil? Or do you think we've covered that already with the kind of conversation we've just had?
I think we covered that pretty much. I was just pointing out that, like, when you bring up that problem of evil, it's usually like the next step for the theist at that point is just to deflect to, well, evil's from the fall of man, or something like that. But yeah, okay. I guess that's the answer that they're prepared to give. So you're going to get it either way.
Yeah, listen to you. We do appreciate your call, and as Ben said, it is going to help some people listening to that perspective, and that's why we have these conversations.